It turns out that for perception, the edge cases are likely to be the limiting factor. Sure, it's easy enough to detect a child with relatively high confidence, 90% plus. But for life-critical systems, you need much, much, much higher confidence than that. You basically need to always see the kid in the road. Machine learning is amazing at what it does. In general, it works by being shown a bunch of examples, learning statistical patterns in the examples, and being able to recognize when it sees things that are similar in the future. So if it's seen a bunch of kids with a certain type of clothing in a certain background running into the road, it'll probably be able to recognize that, as long as it looks like things it's already seen. But the world is full of novelty. And so one of the issues with these systems is something can be different, perhaps subtly different. Perhaps, and we've seen this in the real world, it can be as subtle as changing color of clothing changes the perception performance. So you have this world full of novelty, and the machine learning hasn't been trained on every possible thing and may have big gaps in the training that turn out to matter in the real world. Along with this risk of missing pieces of relevant training data is the issue that perception and prediction based on machine learning tends to be poor at recognizing when it's just guessing. We've seen failure modes in which it will have extremely high confidence and it's completely wrong, typically because it's seen something it hasn't trained on. Now, I'm aware that there's lots of research in this area, and that will eventually make progress. But I'm pointing out that the problem is inherently very difficult and therefore a challenge to apply it to real-world systems. Just to bring home the type of problem we're talking about, let me run a little exercise here. I'm going to ask everyone who's watching this to look at a picture and decide if it's a person or a chicken. I'm making the problem pretty easy. You're becoming a human binary classifier. I'm telling you the correct answer is either person or chicken, so you don't have to worry about anything else. I'm going to show you a picture at the count of 3, and when you see the picture, I want you, preferably out loud if you can, to say the first word that comes into your mind. Do you think this is a person or a chicken? Get ready? 1, 2, 3. When people see this picture for the first time, they often have an experience chicken, no wait, person, because there's a lot of chickenness in this picture. It's mostly chicken, but once you look a little bit closer, you'll see a woman's face peeking out, and then you realize, oh no, it's not a chicken after all. It's a person who happens to be wearing a chicken suit. The difference between chicken and person has large implications both in terms of predictive behavior and the importance of not hitting a person if there's any possible way to avoid it. I ran this picture through a classifier online, and it was supremely confident there was no person, 99%. It thought it was a chicken. It didn't really see the face. There are two issues here. The first is if you haven't been trained on people in chicken suits, you're likely to get this wrong. But the second, more disturbing thing is the system was incredibly confident that it was not a person, even though it was completely wrong in a way that any human could tell. That's the issue here, that if you see a rare event that looks like something the machine learning has learned, but is completely different in terms of what matters in driving, you might have a system that does completely the wrong thing while not even realizing it's making a mistake. I'm going to call these edge cases. The definition I'll use for edge case is things you didn't train on, you didn't think of, things you didn't see in testing. In other words, things that come as a surprise to your system. It's the stuff you didn't think of. And the limiting factor for a lot of autonomous vehicle safety is simply what do you do about the edge cases? What do you do about things you haven't seen before? And how do you make sure, well, maybe you can't work 100%, but how do you make sure you at least know that you're in a situation you weren't designed for so you can do something reasonably safe?